We're going to be doing a TAC panel. This is going to be fun because I have a mic, cards, and clicker, so we're going to navigate all three. So just really careful, back up, and I can't get too close to those speakers either. What is the TAC Advisory Council? You will probably hear us a lot of times say TAC or GB for governing board. The TAC is really our governing body that the foundation has, which oversees our open source standards, best practices, our curriculum, and our technical vision. And to be honest, these folks and a few others are the folks that we go to be like, are we doing this right? Is this what's happening in the community? What should we be focusing on? And they are always willing to give us feedback that we're really, really grateful for. This is a little big glance at the TAC. We started this, actually, I originally started on the TAC. It was me, Joe Daly, Jason Fuller, and Mike Fuller. So if you start on the TAC, sometimes you navigate to actually working for the foundation. It was just 3 of us, and now it has grown to be this big. It's a very diverse TAC. We have platforms, consultants, cloud, government, and practitioners. We meet about once a month, and we're constantly going over the latest trends. And one of the big things that this TAC does is they support all of our working groups. And so when a new idea comes upon, so if you're here this week and you've got a really good idea, we have a form that you can submit and say, I think the community needs to work on this, and we will start putting together a working group proposal, and the TAC is who reviews all of those proposals and signs off to move them forward. Once the output is done, these TAC folks are attending these meetings, which are mostly once a week. So they're all assigned to one of those, and they're making sure they're successful. They're making sure we're hitting the right concepts, that we've got the right involvement in these things. If you go out to the website, you'll see a whole bunch of working groups. Unfortunately, these are closed, which means we need more ideas so we can open up more working groups. Once an output is done, it is the TAC that does a review of that output and tells us we are authorized to publish it. So they have a big responsibility. Today, we're going to have 5 members of the TAC do a panel, and what we've asked them to do is kind of tell us what they're seeing out there in trends and what do they think the future is going to look like. Just as they always are advising us, we want to make sure they're advising you as well. The TAC is an open public meeting, so if you ever want to attend it, you can, so just reach out and let us know. I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Anders first, who will go ahead and introduce himself before we get into the questions.
So, all right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us throughout this conference, and thanks for joining the panel. I'm Anders. I've been doing FinOps for about 5 years, primarily from the engineering technical point of view.
Hello, all. I'm Bindu Sharma. I have been part of TAC since past 8 months, I would say, and before then, I have been an ambassador with FinOps. I'm engaged in FinOps activities for good 4 to 5 years.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dupuis. I've been on the TAC since the fall elections, and it's a great group of people, and we're always learning more, and the working groups have been just a great thing to participate in and provide that guidance and work with them and just see the great output that they're putting. So if you have an idea, please submit it.
Riley Jenkins from Domo. I've been doing FinOps for a little over 9 years. Got involved with the TAC working on engineering taking action. Just excited to see so many faces here, so many people that I've gotten to know in the community and see the community grow.
Hello, everyone. I'm William. I've been on the TAC for about 1.5 years now. I came in from the finance side, so interested to see, to learn about how we can combine engineering and finance to help evolve the industry.
Awesome, thank you so much. We're going to start the fireside chat. I'm going to open up with Michelle. Michelle, you've now done FinOps for a few firms. Something that we get kind of asked a lot is like, FinOps is doing optimization. So tell us, what is the difference between doing just cost optimization and what you would categorize FinOps as? And also, what does it look like to be at the finish line of FinOps?
So I've seen companies focus on cost, and FinOps is so much more than saving money. So if you just focus on the cost optimization, you're not having the realization of the other capabilities, and you'll end up doing it over and over again. And that's why it's important that you go ahead and do more than that. So, you know, governance and all of those other pieces, budgets, and bringing it along so that you don't end up in that continuous cycle.
Perfect. And Bindu, we hear a lot of this shifting left concept. What does that mean to you, and what methods can we apply to make this more of a robust process?
I would say, actually, the automation that we do, I think most of the cloud service provider already giving us some automation regarding the budget. You can set up the budget, you can set up budget action, you can do the anomaly detection. So that shows that we are already shifting left in terms of getting the automation done. The other part to it, I would say, is having the engineers involved into getting their code. When they write their code, when they design it, they have the knowledge. If we make them knowledgeable enough to have the cost to be part of their design, that is, again, help us shifting left. The product managers, when they are designing the feature, consider the cost of the feature. So when they bring it to the product readiness team or procurement team for availability, the cost is in front of them, so they can make the right decisions.
Perfect. Shifting over to you, Williams. You are at an organization that sends. You hear me? Okay. Yeah, you're at an organization that spends a significant amount of money on cloud. I'd like to hear your take, though. Should organizations be performing FinOps if they're spending under $1 million?
I think so, definitely. FinOps it's not necessarily about how much you're spending, right? It's more about what you're spending and the value that you're getting for those dollars. If you're spending, $1 million a year or whatever, you should really and truly be focusing just thoughtful planning, right? Prioritizing your governance and defining your KPIs. That's really and truly what you should be focusing on. It's not necessarily about how much you're spending, but more about how you're spending it.
Perfect. Michelle, what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great opportunity to get in on the ground floor if the company lets you do that, especially if you start with cloud migration, to have the ability to from day one, put tagging in place, know who the ownership is, no matter what level. You always want to know who the owner of something is. Also the opportunity to do, if you're not going to do a full-blown CCOE because of the size, then you can start thinking about intersecting with those teams, because we all know FinOps is a team sport. So get your security, get your enterprise architecture involved, so that you're looking at the well-architected framework, because as your spend goes up, you're going to want to have those things in place. So it's important to start from day one. I think we all started out learning about FinOps and coming to the summits so that we could figure out how to do just that.
Great. Shifting gears a little bit, Riley, from a practitioner standpoint view, how do you feel like Focus, we've got a pretty big announcement, and I know you've been heavily involved in that candidate release. How do you think Focus is going to help shift the day-to-day life of the practitioner?
Yeah, so I was reflecting on this a few days ago because I had the wonderful opportunity of pulling in some billing data in its most raw format and looking at the bajillion columns and 20 billion row data set. And I was thinking about the human brain power that's required to do our jobs. And we talk about getting to these higher order unit cost economics. We want to do this. But the amount of workload that's required to do that is so heavily on just starting from scratch. And not that we're all starting from scratch. And so I think making it so that we can get to the higher level analytics and the higher order questions faster is going to be really helpful for the industry to help refine those practices and make it so that it's something that even in the open source community, we can not only talk about the concepts, but we actually can share code to show this is how we went from Focus to something that's a more tangible, more deliverable outcome.
Awesome. Let's shift and talk a little about the framework and intersecting points. On the capability, there's an intersecting with other frameworks. And we created that so we could really talk about what it looks like when you're intersecting with security, ITAM, TBM. Anders, there are FinOps framework concepts that work well and do not work well on-prem.
So this is a super interesting question if we look at the data about this. So as most of you guys are aware, there's 80 to 90% of the workloads are still on-premise or in private. So what are we doing here talking about the rest, 10, 15% of cloud, and we're all cloud here. So I think it's a really interesting question. We shouldn't ignore it, and it's not going to migrate that quickly to the cloud that we all hope. So. And we heard some advice this morning from Mike Fuller in his keynote. I think he said, there is no finish line, he said, in FinOps. And if you work with optimization, a lot for some time, you know that there is no finish line in optimization. In any optimization, it is always this like wicked problem that will never be solved. You will just only find like new ways how to manage it. And as you sort of manage it, it's going to mutate a little bit and it's going to change. So I think we have a lot in common, actually, with what's happening on-premise. And I have some gray hairs. I was optimizing on-premise, like pre-cloud. And it's like, it's not that different, really, fundamentally. A lot of the practices are the same. I see a lot of you guys nodding here right now. And so it might be interesting to look at what might be different, the differences be. What did the clouds bring that might float back into on-premise management? And I think it's DevOps is one of those things, like we remember it from like 10, 20 years, it started being tutored, but it actually had a lot of like bottlenecks. To me, it wasn't DevOps for real. Like the constraints and the bottlenecks were always there and you had to focus on them. As we moved into the public cloud, we got more adaptability, we got speed of iterations, a lot of good things. And I think the people that manage on-premise, they want that as well. They're gonna acquire that somehow, and I think we can teach them a little bit about that. So I think that's a little bit answering your question here, Ashley, I hope.
You got it. I moved to the back, so you look at me this way. Perfect. Riley, another hot topic lately, another intersection is ITAM and FinOps. Interestingly enough, you have some background in this space. Where do you see the solid intersection between those frameworks? And should FinOps practitioners be managing SaaS costs? I'm going to ask you the tough question.
Yeah. I actually transitioned from being an ITAM like auditor. I did software for a company that does that, and then moved on to doing FinOps. Is my mic not working? There we go. And it's interesting. I can't say it any better than the presentation I watched earlier today about how that works together, because it's really just injecting some variables that if you've never been in the ITAM space, you wouldn't really think about. So I would, if any of you have any questions on software licensing, there's been some awesome sessions that go into great detail. And I think that it's something that if you are not talking to your ITAM group and you have a large portion of licenses that your company is using, that's a discussion that you should be having to get in sync with that team, or at least get to know what they're dealing with so you can start coordinating with them. The SaaS thing is interesting because, I mean, especially as I've been talking with other people that have to deal with this, I mean, if you're really doing a fully burdened cost of a feature or a product or a group or department, and they have these SaaS tools, you need to start thinking about distributing that SaaS tool across your workloads and being able to say, okay, well, this feature costs this amount, but there's these other tools that we're using that are, we would call them overhead, but can we start doing the same thing that we do for our cloud providers and distributing those costs so we can start showing teams this is how much you're spending on monitoring or logging? Or I think that's going to be a discipline that especially Focus makes me excited about, because that provides kind of a structured data to start doing that kind of thing.
So you're saying with Focus, we can focus on SaaS?
Yeah, we can focus on focusing on.
Good.
Yeah.
Michelle, you come from an engineering background. Have you seen opportunities to work with other tech personas like security and architects?
Yes, I have. It's critically important to do that and to foster those relationships. When we first started at moving into the cloud at one of the companies I was working at, we started looking at the data and the costs, and I said, why are we moving to the cloud? It's not cheaper. And the senior VP I was working for at the time, he said, it's not about saving money. He said, it's about the other pieces of it, the agility, the scalability. And he said, more than anything else, it's about the security. Can you afford to have risk? Can you afford to not have things patched? If we have a breach, no company can afford to have a breach right now. So he said, it's not just cost that drives people to the cloud. And so then you foster those relationships and work with the architecture teams and the security to make sure you're checking off those boxes. And that's the value of the cloud.
Shifting to you, William, you have a role where you are reporting into finance and a finance background doing FinOps. What does success look like from finance outward to engineering when it comes to maturing a FinOps practice?
So from a finance perspective, it's success is basically can we achieve the agreed upon targets and opportunities that the business has set. So if those targets are, let's say, their cost, then what value are we getting from running in the cloud? If let's say those targets are KPIs or efficiency, what are your targets? What are your KPIs? and what plan do you have to achieve those, to hit those. If you have a plan, then fantastic, you can march towards that. And if it's forecasting, if those targets are forecasting, then accuracy, right? Getting as closest to the pin. So that's kind of where we are with that.
Perfect. Okay, this question I'm going to have all of you guys answer here. So we're about 4 years into the term FinOps being around, and I know a lot of people have been doing it before the term existed. Looking over the past 2 days, I know you guys have been plugging into the breakouts, chalk talks, and having a lot of conversations. What do you see that the runners are focusing on this space? Start with Anders. Put him on the spot.
I'll give you the obvious one. It's the people, it's the education, the training. I mean, being here, but also training our colleagues as we come back to our offices next week.
I would say serverless technology. I see that with the serverless, it uses the smallest unit of compute. So with that, I do see that if we move our workloads into container-based technology, that will give us the biggest runway. There is zero cost of infrastructure maintenance, and it's automatically scales. It's highly available, fault tolerant, so it looks like it has most of the features that we are looking for, and no idle cost except storage. So I'll go with that.
I heard a lot this week that it's about the people, and I think we all saw, J.P. Morgan Chase got the award, and the amount of people that are doing FinOps and are, involved in that practice. I watched them play a board game last night, several of them, and so they're really into FinOps. I mean, that's a lot of dedication. So it's definitely about the people and the cultural shift.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get the board on my desk at work to confuse my coworkers. I'm really excited to see. I mean, running is not the same thing it used to be even a year ago, and things like the assessment tools and the things that we've kind of seen come out that have been really community driven to help us kind of reflect and say, okay, look at your practice and look at the people, look at the discipline, and then see where you fit. I mean, even for, we've been doing it for a long time, and we would call ourselves runners, but to be able to see certain points and say, actually, we're not running in that anymore because the industry is actually developed. It's better than we are right now. Let's focus on that. Seeing that trend has been something that's really inspiring me for me to see that it's not just, we're trying to get to running. It's actually the definition of running is changing because we are, as a community, getting better.
So what I've seen from the runners is basically in this current economy, you're starting to see runners sort of go back and refocus on, say, hygiene, right? Going back and reviewing a lot of things. Are there areas of improvement? Where are some low-hanging fruit that we can find and things like that? You're also starting to see people focus on being more cloud native. Look, we've migrated to the cloud. We've been doing this. We're working on optimizations. But are our applications, are our resources truly cloud native? Are we really truly getting the value that we can from operating in the cloud? So
I love that. And we can't not talk about sustainability. So, Bindu, I know you're leading a working group that maybe has been the longest working group that we have now at this point. Can you share how you feel like the framework, the FinOps Foundation framework, can intersect with cloud sustainability?
Definitely. I think since last year in the summit, we talked mostly about the awareness about sustainability. But this year, I think what I'm looking at and what we are finding is the intersect between FinOps and cloud sustainability. And what we have seen is that when you are running a FinOps practice, you're already amplifying the sustainability. It's just that you need to present it through dashboards or show it to your customers or even to your organization. Now, we do have some challenges, and that's what we addressed in the group. But in terms of just to talk about cloud sustainability, both are referring to the efficiency, either through cost or through the carbon footprint. And anyone out here wants to contribute, please join our working group.
Awesome. And it feels like a couple years ago, we were talking a lot of Kubernetes and a lot of containers, and now we've shifted to AI, ML. I think we're going to see a lot happen in this space, and it's going to be exciting, but are there things that you're excited about, Anders, or we should also be worried about risk mitigation?
So I really wanted the mic on this one, actually. Thank you so much. And I've been going all cuckoo about this pattern of using autonomous optimization over the past year, because doing the FinOps for some time, you notice like there's a pattern that we've been throwing people at the problem over and over again, and it doesn't scale. And we're just adding more and more toil. It's boring, repetitive work that doesn't engage us in finance or in engineering. So let's get rid of that. And with pattern detection abilities that are released with the use of ML and so forth, you could look across the entire tech stack from the workload down, not on individual levels, just like, or layers, looking only how do I optimize my containers, 15 to 25 parameters or something like, but from the workload down, maybe even the unique workload, like me as a user, maybe I want a lot of sustainability when I'm using my favorite services, but maybe another user is willing, they want to prioritize price instead. So we can configure the services on a whole new level or granularity than we have done before. So I think there's so much potential. And we've seen this happening with some of the vendors here showcasing this on computes. They're sort of proven already that this pattern works. And some are now doing it on storage as well. And I think there's so much more potential in this pattern. So I'm going cuckoo about that. The second thing I'm seeing is like more analyst-driven kind of support, like that you can ask questions on it, that you're asking repetitive all the time, and like maybe get suggestions for answers or prompts, or like things you should ask into the data. So you can get suggestions about that, and I think we're seeing that happen already. We saw some demos in the keynotes this morning. Next level is like maybe based on all my billing data, can you suggest like a value or cost optimization program with 5 different work streams for me? I mean, the AI knows a lot about program management. It's going to give me pretty much a blueprint for this program, and maybe it even knows my organization if it's trained on my individual organization and my billing data. It's going to do a lot of the work for us, and this excites me as well because I'm kind of lazy. And now for the risk, you mentioned risk, Ashley. I mean, if we behave like the lawyers and throw this up in court cases and we don't look at these recommendations, we're going to get toasted. We're going to see cost incident at a whole new level if we don't like know what we're doing. So I think we need to stay a little bit careful. And of course, we have the ethical and the risks of this becoming weapons of mass destructions as well. So let's stay away from that.
I'm looking forward to next year. I feel like we're going to have a lot of examples and real-life examples to show. So I'm looking forward for those submissions to come in. Michelle, I don't know if you've seen the job board lately, but it seems like every day there's 2 or 3 more jobs hopping up. What do you see in the ecosystem of FinOps as a career right now?
So it's interesting because you've got a vertical and a horizontal, and so across the vertical you're seeing more requests for different roles, you know, whether you have your certification in architecture, there's product managers coming in to the role now, so there's different tracks that you can go on, and then in the ecosystem itself, you have, you know, your lead practitioner, you have your manager now, and so the top and the bottom both work together, so that team needs to have all of those different people. Data scientists are coming into it, DevOps, so it's really interesting to see the different opportunities. And then, you know, you can be a practitioner at an enterprise, you can do consultancy. There's lots and lots of opportunities every day. We're seeing more, and we're seeing it across the globe, which is really fantastic. If you look on that job board, you know, it's not just here, it's everywhere, so that's really nice.
Yeah, I think this past year we saw our first VP of FinOps, so it's pretty exciting. All right, we're going to take some questions from the audience, but I'm going to ask Riley to wrap us up here. What's your advice for executive leaders right now, especially given all this economic pressure? What do you want to tell them?
I think it becomes a question of investment. I mean, when you're making a decision on, okay, you know, seeing all the macroeconomic conditions happening, how do you invest your money to be, you know, help your business, make sure your people are okay? And as I've talked to various groups, it's kind of come down to, if you're going to invest in people or you're going to invest in the process, you can make those decisions and you can empower your people. Because ultimately, if you're empowering them to see, you know, especially in FinOps, to take the tools that, you know, we've all kind of developed as a community and use those, that's not something that's just about cost savings. That's something about to help your people, you know, achieve a broader business outcome. So it's really about making sure that they understand, your employees understand how they fit into the greater business goal and how they can contribute to that. And FinOps has a unique ability to kind of connect all those dots in a financially impactful way.
That's awesome. All right, thank you all. Let's give them a round of applause, and we'll take some questions. This is a hard bunch to get together. I get 1 hour a month with them, and we grill them. So this is your turn to do it. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw your hand up, and we'll have one of them take it.
If you could go back to where you were starting FinOps, what would you do or not do different? What's the one thing you would pick?
You all get to answer it, since you didn't jump.
All right, I would read the book. I didn't read the book.
Yeah, I'd bring the book with me. No. One thing that I've kind of always thought about, and it's kind of been that thing that you realize, oh shoot, I should have done this like 10 times in a row and finally get it. A lot of times we're like, oh, there's this thing coming, and when that happens, I'm going to be able to like do this RI or do this thing, and it's going to be perfect. And then you realize that, oh, it's sliding dates. Natural things happen when we're developing a product. So don't let there's this perfect thing that's coming to do something. Like, you can do stuff now, and even letting it say, hey, it's not going to be perfect for a year, but doing those short-term things, you can really save a lot of money and show value to get more input and more resources by just doing things that are short-term, especially when you're starting out. That's one of the big things I wish I would have understood.
I would say when I started off, we didn't have the centralization, so I would do that, and then again, starting the sustainability during that time, collecting the carbon data.
You, Will? You got something?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna second Anders, to be honest with you. I would have starting out reading the book. A lot of times I'll try to lean on my own understanding and things like that, and try to source material from a bunch of different places. But going to that book, give a central place and kind of puts everything, bundle it all up together, give you a much better foundation. So I second that.
And I actually wouldn't have done anything different, because the one thing that we did do is we found the FinOps Foundation, because back when we were doing it, we were scouring the internet. What's FinOps? What are we doing? What are we trying to do? Where's TAG? How do we tag? And when we found the foundation and there were other people having the same exact issues in the community and the people, that helped us do what we needed to do and have that feedback. So I think, that's the one thing that I would have asked for help. That's, that we did, so we were good.
First of all, thank you so much for this session. So my question is, since you have been in this space for so long and you have seen it evolve so much from cloud cost optimization to showback, chargeback, now unit economics and sustainability, what is something that you are looking forward to over the next year in this space evolving?
You want to think about it? There you go.
I think more towards, we talked about, we are actually practicing the unit economics, the more shifting left. So having product managers giving the feature cost, engineering team embedding the cost information right into their design, and more into dashboarding. I know it's not new, but improved dashboarding.
I'll take it. So some of the things I'm looking forward over the next year is actually, I'm going to piggyback off of Ben Coles' session a little while ago, about an hour ago. We're not hitting on, running in all of the FinOps capabilities today, but one of the things that we're focusing on this next year, obviously forecasting, right? You should always be forecasting, but a lot of things that we're working on over this next year, improved reporting, a lot of automation. Really excited about, I'll say, the next 12 months.
So, and I think there's two things about intersecting two different dimensions or intersection that I'm looking forward towards. One is intersecting with other frameworks, because if you've been involved in other frameworks, they can become a little bit of an island that tries to solve everything and be like the center of the universe themselves. And I don't think FinOps should be that. There's other frameworks and practices that we are dependent on. I think we should intersect and learn with them and collaborate in a good way. And I think we have a really good vibe, so we can be role models when it comes to collaboration with this. I think there's a really interesting working group happening on technology business management, TBM, Riley mentioned ITAM and a lot of these other things. We shouldn't try to solve all the world's problem in this space. I think that's the thing. The other dimension to this like sort of intersectional collaboration that I think is super important for the foundation. I'm going to use a metaphor here. Anyone here heard of the International Space Station? Yep. So that project was really costly, but like running over budget 5x or something, 10x for like 5-10 years. It was pretty much standstill. And what happened, and I'm from Europe, so I can speak a little bit nasty about the Americans here. They tried to tell everyone in that project what to do, because we put a man on the moon and we took him back safely in the 60s. How hard can this International Space Station project be? And the Russians and the Germans and the Swedes, we didn't really, we got fed up with that, so nothing happened in the project. Eventually, the Americans realized they needed to ask, what do you guys think about this? What do you think we should be doing? So we started collaborating in that project, and now that project is doing pretty well, even considering the current political circumstances. So I think about the International Space Station as this foundation. I think that's something I'm looking forward to. We're doing pretty well. I think we have a good international community here, good diversity, but I think we can do even better.
I'm looking forward to focus. When I was writing my TAG standard a few years ago, every cloud provider had different standards, and that's just one area you hit on it. So I think when we see the output of focus and everyone working together, it's just going to really change everything for us.
You stole mine.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, I figured you could expand on it
I
and
totally
give a little more detail on focus.
No, yeah, focus is super exciting, and another area that I'll jump to a different topic. We've talked about how focus is also, or not focus, FinOps is also about making money and empowering business value, and I'm really excited to see that develop, and rather than just we're talking to finance, we're talking to product, we're talking to engineering. Start talking to like how do we start showing sales? Okay, like we're doing this thing over here. Can we help you understand how like your customers are going to start looking at focus, looking at contracts, how they understand how you're using your product? I think that's going to be something that comes, and it's going to be really interesting to see in the industry.
Yeah, I'm interested to understand any thoughts you might have on balancing the build around a centralized FinOps team and its capabilities to actually do as opposed to recommend, like having engineers in it, et cetera, versus just trying to interoperate with, say, multiple engineering squads that are focused in different clouds where you're trying to inject things to be done, but they're going into their backlog, sitting there for God knows how long. You're trying to get them to bring up the priorities, et cetera, and making them more visible. Like, where's the sweet spot?
So that was asked to me yesterday after I did a talk on professional development and where I thought that lived. Does engineering live within a FinOps team? I'm going to let the panel answer that as well and they asked if there'd be a potential for a working group or something coming forward, because a lot of times you are doing just the recommendation, and I've been asked that very question, should we be doing it? And I've worked on SWAT teams where architecture and other people have gone in and helped teams do the work and achieve the optimization. And you can get more done, but do you own it? And that's a lot of the fear of why I haven't seen it done, but I'll let these guys weigh in on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, so at our company, the SRE team is the FinOps team. There's no separation. We're very focused on ownership. And some of the things are great about that. And some of the things are not so great. But I think of it in terms of a lot of the, we want you to do this. Hey, this is going to be cost optimal is really a discussion of position of risk. You're talking about, hey, we want you to do something, and we come at it from the perspective of like, we know how the system works. We know, we know where all the skeletons are buried. We know the issues, but we can communicate something, and they trust when we say something, because we know that if it goes south or it's going to be bad for the customers, we're going to be right there with them trying to fix it. So and that takes a while to develop that trust. But that's been something very meaningful for us, is to be able to bridge that gap very quickly. So even though we may be a little separate, they know that we're not going to give them a suggestion or some goal that's going to cut bone. It's going to be hard to do or impact our customers in any way.
That's awesome, because we're a little over time, and that's my fault because I was just listening to all your responses. I'll just ask one last question. William, when are we done doing FinOps?
Could you ask that one more time?
Yeah. When are we done doing FinOps?
Never.
Thank you.
FinOps is life.
FinOps is life. Thank you all. You can see them on the party later today.
Thanks for watching that session. I'm sitting here in San Diego right after FinOps X. We hope you join us next year here live 2024. In the meantime, please subscribe to the channel and join the community. Get involved. Join the summits. Get in a working group. And don't forget to get FinOps certified. Because next year here in San Diego for FinOps X, it's going to be twice as big. Come join the party. Come meet your people. Welcome home.